the future didn't come from scientists or tech companies, but from forgotten cartoons most people barely remember. Decades ago, while adults dismissed animation as simple kids' entertainment, certain sci-fi shows were already imagining worlds shaped by climate collapse, artificial intelligence, surveillance, and corporate power. These weren't lucky guesses or flashy gimmicks. They were carefully built futures that now look uncomfortably familiar. Many of these series aired briefly, were poorly promoted, or confused audiences who weren't ready for their ideas. As a result, they vanished while their predictions quietly became reality. Today, revisiting them feels like opening a time capsule that somehow knew what was coming. These 10 forgotten sci-fi cartoons didn't just entertain. They warned, questioned, and predicted a future we are now living in. Galaxy Express 999. Galaxy Express 999 looked like a poetic space fantasy. But beneath its dreamy visuals was a deeply unsettling prediction about humanity's future relationship with technology. The story follows a young boy traveling across the galaxy on a cosmic train, seeking a mechanical body that promises immortality. What made the series visionary was its refusal to glorify this upgrade. The mechanical humans Tetsuro meets are immortal, yet emotionally hollow, often cruel, and disconnected from empathy. Long before modern debates about neural implants, digital consciousness, and life extension, the show asked a brutal question. What is lost when survival becomes the only goal? Episodes repeatedly explore a widening gap between those who can afford technological transcendence and those left behind in decaying biological bodies. Environmental collapse is treated as a consequence of unchecked advancement, with Earth abandoned by elites fleeing to artificial worlds. Today, as billionaires chase longevity and private space travel while climate crises worsen, Galaxy Express 999 feels eerily contemporary. Its strength lies not in prediction through gadgets, but in understanding human behavior. The series warned that technology without ethics doesn't save humanity. It divides it, leaving us faster, stronger, and more alone than ever before. Brave Star disguised sharp economic commentary beneath the surface of a colorful space western. Set on the frontier planet New Texas, the series revolves around conflicts caused by cerium, a rare energy source that attracts corporations, criminals, and settlers alike. While presented as adventure, the show quietly predicted modern resource wars with disturbing clarity. Cerium functions much like today's lithium or rare earth minerals, essential, limited, and controlled by powerful interests. The mining corporation Stampede effectively governs New Texas, funding infrastructure while exploiting workers and manipulating politics. This mirrors real-world situations where corporations wield more power than governments in resource-rich regions. Brave Star also explored how communities become dependent on single resources, making them vulnerable to economic collapse and coercion. Episodes frequently showed shortages triggering price manipulation and forced labor. At the center stood Brave Star himself, a lawman drawing strength from indigenous traditions, symbolizing resistance to exploitation, though filtered through a dated lens. Initially dismissed as a He-Man imitator, the series was far more thoughtful than critics allowed. Today, as nations battle over supply chains and mining rights, Brave Star reads less like fantasy and more like a cautionary tale about corporate power filling the vacuum where governance fails. Mighty Orbots. Mighty Orbots arrived quietly and disappeared just as fast, yet its ideas were decades ahead of public conversation. The series centered on a team of robots controlled by a global security organization that monitored communications across the galaxy. What makes it prophetic is how it treated surveillance not as evil, but as a tool that could easily become one. Long before smartphones, data tracking, and mass digital monitoring, Mighty Orbots imagined a world where security depended on watching everything. The villains often exploited these systems, spreading misinformation or hijacking trusted networks. This anticipated modern concerns around cyber warfare and disinformation campaigns. The show also explored the tension between safety and privacy, a debate that now defines digital life. Visually, the series stood out with fluid animation produced by Japanese studios, giving it a sophistication rare for Western cartoons of the time. Legal battles and poor marketing cut its life short, preventing it from building an audience. In hindsight, Mighty Orbots feels like a warning about interconnected systems. The more powerful technology becomes, the more dangerous it is when trust is broken. Its message resonates strongly in an era of data leaks, hacked platforms, and algorithmic control. Jace and the Wheeled Warriors. Jace and the Wheeled Warriors explored the unintended consequences of biotechnology long before genetic engineering became mainstream. The series centers on the monster minds, plant-based life forms originally engineered to solve food scarcity on hostile planets. Instead of saving humanity, they evolve into a self-replicating force bent on domination. This storyline mirrors modern fears surrounding genetically modified organisms and gene editing technologies. What makes the show remarkable is its understanding of cascading consequences. A single well-intentioned invention spirals beyond human control, spreading traits through ecosystems and adapting faster than its creators can respond. Episodes frequently emphasize that the problem wasn't evil intent, but arrogance and lack of foresight. The monster minds function as both biological weapons and invasive species, predicting debates now happening around gene drives and synthetic biology. Despite imaginative designs and ambitious storytelling, the show struggled commercially and ended without resolution. Today, its warnings feel more relevant than ever. As science gains the power to rewrite life itself, Jace and the Wheeled Warriors reminds us that innovation without restraint can create problems far greater than the ones it was meant to solve. Inhumanoids. Inhumanoids was one of the darkest cartoons ever produced, and its environmental message remains chillingly accurate. The series begins when deep earth drilling awakens ancient monsters buried beneath the planet. These creatures are not random threats, but consequences of human interference with natural systems. Long before fracking, deep-sea mining, or melting permafrost entered public discourse, Inhumanoids warned that disturbing unknown environments could unleash irreversible damage. Corporations in the show repeatedly ignore scientific warnings, prioritizing profit over safety, a dynamic painfully familiar today. The monsters themselves symbolize pollution and decay, transforming ecosystems into lifeless wastelands. What unsettled audiences was how grounded the horror felt. This wasn't fantasy destruction. It was a metaphor for environmental collapse caused by human greed. The show faced criticism for being too intense for children and lasted only one season. Yet its message aged disturbingly well. In an era of climate crises, toxic spills, and regulatory capture, Inhumanoids feels less exaggerated than prophetic. It dared to suggest that humanity's greatest enemy isn't monsters, but the belief that nature can be exploited without consequence. The Mysterious Cities of Gold. The Mysterious Cities of Gold blended historical adventure with forward-thinking ideas about sustainable energy. Set during the Age of Exploration, the series followed children searching for legendary civilizations powered by advanced solar technology. The Golden Condor, a solar-powered flying machine, anticipated modern solar thermal systems decades early. What made the show visionary was its belief that ancient knowledge could solve modern problems. Long before biomimicry and sustainable engineering became popular, the series suggested that lost civilizations understood harmony with nature better than industrial society. Episodes explored renewable energy, ocean currents, and natural engineering principles with surprising accuracy for children's television. Educational segments grounded the fantasy in real history, making learning inseparable from storytelling. While often remembered as an adventure series, its deeper message was about balance. Power drawn from nature should coexist with respect, not domination. As scientists today rediscover ancient cooling systems and durable materials, the show's premise feels remarkably current. The mysterious cities of gold didn't just imagine the future, it looked to the past for answers, offering a hopeful alternative to endless extraction and environmental collapse. Visionaries, Knights of the Magical Light Visionaries, imagined a future where technology fails completely, forcing society to rebuild around mysticism and fragmented knowledge. Set on the planet Prismos, a cosmic event permanently disables machines, transforming former technologists into magic-wielding elites. What makes the series prophetic is its understanding of technological fragility. Modern systems are so complex that only a small group understands them fully. Visionaries explored what happens when that knowledge is lost. The magical staffs, indistinguishable from advanced devices, reflect how modern technology already appears like magic to most users. Power shifts to those who retain partial understanding, creating feudal hierarchies based on information. Critics dismissed the show as a toy commercial, but its ideas were sophisticated. It suggested that collapse wouldn't erase knowledge evenly, but fracture it. Different factions preserve pieces of the past without the ability to rebuild it alone. This mirrors modern concerns about infrastructure collapse and knowledge silos. Visionaries warned that dependence on systems we barely understand could lead to regression, not progress, if those systems fail unexpectedly. Time Bokan. Time Bokan wrapped its warnings in comedy, but its message about resource exploitation was serious. The series followed rival time travelers racing to secure Dynamond, a powerful energy source capable of powering entire civilizations. This fictional resource mirrors today's competition for lithium, oil, and rare earth elements. What made Time Bokan stand out was its cynical portrayal of corporations and misinformation. Villains frequently manipulated narratives to control supply and inflate scarcity, foreshadowing modern disinformation campaigns. The show suggested that energy crises are often manufactured rather than inevitable. Everyday technology in the series depended on Dynamond, creating artificial dependency. This parallels planned obsolescence and proprietary systems today. Though remembered for slapstick humor, Time Bokan carried sharp social satire. It warned that when energy becomes currency, truth becomes collateral damage. As nations now scramble for control over resources essential to modern life, Time Bokan's playful chaos reads like an early diagnosis of global economic conflict driven by energy dependence. Star Blazers. Star Blazers presented nuclear devastation with unusual scientific seriousness for its time. Earth's surface is rendered uninhabitable by radioactive bombardment, forcing humanity underground. The show accurately depicted long-term radiation effects and environmental collapse decades before nuclear winter became widely discussed. Beyond destruction, Star Blazers focused on recovery. The mission to retrieve technology capable of reversing radiation damage mirrors modern discussions around climate intervention and geoengineering. What makes the series prophetic is its moral tension. Technology powerful enough to heal the planet is also capable of destroying it. The show treated space resources as contested territory, anticipating modern debates over lunar and asteroid mining. Star Blazers also introduced American audiences to serialized storytelling with emotional continuity. Its warning remains clear. Survival depends not just on technological solutions, but on ethical responsibility. As global tensions rise around nuclear weapons and environmental repair, Star Blazers feels less like science fiction and more like a blueprint of consequences humanity still faces. Captain Future? Captain Future predicted the rise of private tech visionaries long before modern billionaire space races. The protagonist, Curtis Newton, uses personal wealth and innovation to outperform government space agencies. This dynamic closely mirrors today's private aerospace industry. The show questioned the concentration of technological power in individual hands. Captain Future's companions represented distinct technological paths: robotics, artificial intelligence, and synthetic life, developing separately rather than as one unified system. This accurately predicted modern specialization across AI, robotics, and biotech. Episodes frequently explored ethical dilemmas around innovation, responsibility, and oversight. While Western audiences barely noticed the series, it became iconic in parts of Europe and Japan. Captain Future suggested that technological leadership without accountability could reshape society faster than laws can respond. In an era where private companies dominate exploration and innovation, its message feels remarkably current. If these cartoons felt less like fiction and more like reality, you're not imagining it. They may have been forgotten, cancelled, or overlooked, but their ideas survived and quietly came true. The real question isn't how they predicted the future, but why we didn't listen. If this list surprised you, drop a comment with the cartoon you remember most or the prediction that shocked you the hardest. Make sure to like the video and subscribe for more forgotten sci-fi, hidden animation history, and stories that saw tomorrow coming long before the rest of us did.